Hello Star Wars fans, and welcome to episode 116 of Journey into Legends. Today we'll be reading Jedi Trial by David Sherman and Dan Craig. Jedi Trial was released in 2004, and it follows Anakin during the Clone Wars. I haven't heard anything about this book, so I'm really excited to jump into this one blind. Without further ado, let's read and review. So this book, similar to others in the Clone Wars multimedia project, like the Cestus Deception, Shatterpoint, and the Medstar duology, follows a campaign on one singular planet. This time, it's the planet Praesitlyn, the site of a major communications hub being invaded by the Separatists. Now, to me, Praesitlyn wasn't the most interesting planet to follow. It was fairly boring, and I just don't think the book did a good job of explaining why the communications hub couldn't just be moved onto a ship or another planet. Anyways, the Battle of Praesitlyn starts between the Separatist invaders, led by the commander Pors Toneth, and some local defense forces including General Kamar and his army, as well as Zo's rider Slake, a former Republic admiral who went rogue and basically became a pirate, which I found to be a really cool concept. Anyways, the first half of this book I found really boring, as we mostly followed boring, forgettable characters like Odi Subu and Urk Harmon, two survivors of Kamar's fleet who fell in love, and I just didn't care. Characters like these two, Pors Toneth, who was an obnoxious villain throughout the whole book, and some others, made this first half of the book really rough to get through. Luckily, the book did get a bit more interesting around the halfway point when the Republic reinforcements arrived, commanded by Anakin Skywalker and Nija Halcyon. Now, if the name Nija Halcyon sounds familiar to you, that's because he is Corran Horn's grandfather. To see him show up in this book in a really major role was a really welcome surprise. On top of that, I really enjoyed his and Anakin's dynamic, especially when they both reveal their secret marriages to each other. In a way, I think Nija, in the same vein as Qui-Gon, would have made a great master for Anakin. Anyways, once we started to follow more recognizable and interesting characters, and the real battle began, the book did become much more interesting, which was a relief. One thing I did thoroughly enjoy about this book was the more military sci-fi tone it had, similar to the Black Fleet Crisis trilogy. There was a lot of emphasis on tactics, army structure, resources and logistics, and more. And although it wasn't the most interesting stuff I've ever read, it at least made the book feel very unique compared to other Star Wars books. Though he's front and center on the cover, Anakin didn't really feel like the book's main character. It didn't really feel like there was a main character. In Anakin's case, he wasn't too present for the first half of the book, and once he was finally on Praesitlyn, he didn't get too much development until the very end, when, after the Separatists executed a hostage, he achieved full oneness with the Force and captured Pors Toneth and his staff. Now, for being the mission that eventually convinced the Council to make Anakin a Jedi Knight, which in Legends took until 2.5 years into the war, this book felt pretty underwhelming. Anakin didn't really learn any substantial lessons here. Sure, he proved that he could command an army efficiently and effectively. He ended up saving the day at the communications center and in the space battle above, and he went through an exhausting and draining war campaign. But this wasn't as exciting or character-altering as you'd expect from a story that elevates the literal main character of Star Wars to the rank of Jedi Knight. It was just very underwhelming to me. So overall, while I enjoyed some aspects of this book, such as the inclusion of Nija Halcyon, or the more militaristic strategic writing, I found myself extremely bored with a lot of the book, and it feels now like this book amounts to very little in the grand scheme of things, beyond Anakin's subsequent rise to knighthood, which instead of further justifying this book's existence, or making it feel more relevant, instead, it just makes it feel like the moment of Anakin's final trial was wasted on such a disappointing and mundane book. Next, because it also features Anakin and is a bit more military-oriented, I decided to read a short story by Jude Watson titled Storm Fleet Warnings, published in a short story collection from Hasbro in 2003. This story follows Obi-Wan and Anakin as they come across the Storm Fleet, a secret new separatist fleet they learn is heading to invade the planet Cyphar. They're able to bait the fleet into an asteroid field, destroying 2 of the freighters and delaying the fleet enough for a Republic Defense Force to reach Cyphar in time. This was a decent little story. Obi-Wan and Anakin's dynamic was portrayed very well, as expected from Jude Watson, and the action was fun. Next, we have Volume 7 of the Clone Wars Adventures series, which has 4 stories, starting with Creature Comforts, which follows Obi-Wan and Anakin on some random planet as they escape monster after monster trying to eat them. This was a pretty fun, very simple story, and I enjoyed it. Next, we have Spy Girls, which follows Padme and one of Bail Organa's aides, Sheltae, as they sneak around a party to find evidence of a senator accepting bribes from the Separatists. This one was fine, I guess. It wasn't very interesting, and it had a bit of a girl power type of message, which is perfectly fine. I'm just not the target audience for that type of story. Anyways, our third story is Impregnable, which follows Bolter Swan on the planet Amaltana as she fights her way through the Separatist leader's giant impenetrable fortress. When she reaches his command center, she destroys the door sequence, which locks her out, but also locks the Separatist leader in forever. This was a fine little story. It wasn't anything too special, but it's neat to see more of Bolter Swan. Anyways, our last story is This Precious Shining, which follows a trio of down-on-their-luck citizens on some random planet during a battle. They hear about a separatist treasury on the planet and decide to loot it and buy their way off-world. After disguising themselves as clones, they loot the treasury but are caught by real clones. They then find themselves helping the clones load the treasure onto a Republic cruiser and stowed away on the ship. This was a fine little story. It had some decent humor, but it wasn't anything too special. Anyways, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And stay tuned for my next video where I'll be starting the Republic Commando series with Book 1, Hard Contact by Karen Travis. See ya!